vouchers will not pay for housing. So in any circumstance, unless you are receiving active treatment in an institutional setting, you are going to need to be thinking about how are you going to pay for housing. You could rent your home or you could own your home. Some families who have the financial means choose to invest in housing for their loved one. That could be an accessory dwelling unit on the family property, that could be a separate home elsewhere, or it can mean bequeathing the family home. Some state housing finance authorities actually offer down payment assistance and may have mortgage products to help you secure and invest in housing stability for the future. One of the benefits of home ownership is that any modifications you make are yours. Nobody can raise the rent and bump you out of your monthly budget. So for someone on a fixed income, that can be key. You can also rent your home. Renting your home can be very expensive. That's called market rate housing. I mean, here where I live in Denver, Colorado, you have to make nearly $24 an hour working full-time just to afford a studio. Luckily, our country has some affordable housing programs. In general, there are two ways in which housing is made affordable in our country. The first way is that developers are offered subsidies. And so they build this housing with subsidies and they promise that a certain amount of units have to be affordable. And so maybe that is an opportunity for you to be able to live in one of those units. Alternatively, you could use what's called a housing choice voucher. A housing choice voucher is paid for through the Public Housing Authority. There are often wait lists, and sometimes wait lists don't even exist. So it's really important that as soon as possible when you turn 18, if you're interested in using a housing choice voucher, that you apply to be on the wait list or at least be notified for when a wait list opens. The housing choice voucher allows you to be able to rent a market rate unit, but you only have to pay 30% of your income, and the voucher subsidizes the rest. So essentially, you pay your landlord some of the rent, and then the housing authority is going to pay your landlord the rest of the rent. As there's a movement to create more narrow-inclusive housing solutions, we have to think about, do we want to add more additional rentals to the market, or do we want more home ownership opportunities? And so I wanted to just kind of talk about the benefits and considerations of both. If you decide to rent, you have more flexibility. You can get in and out of your home a little bit easier in terms of breaking a lease. You're not as committed. There's also a lot more opportunities for rental assistance that aren't available when you own your own home. Some of the considerations, though, in a rental property is that if you do need significant modifications, your landlord may or may not accept them. Yes, there is the Americans with Disabilities Act that is supposed to be able to protect people so they can access the accommodations they need. But sometimes things are tricky, like soundproofing or changing light fixtures. These are things that maybe a landlord is uncomfortable with changing. A couple of things to consider. If you open an ABLE account when your loved one is in elementary school and you start to save just $50 a month, you might have enough for a down payment on a modest home for your loved one. Being able to invest in housing allows for that stability that is so very important for this population. The rental market is sometimes volatile. Maybe rent is going to be raised, or maybe a landlord is going to say that you can't do some form of modification that would increase accessibility. It's really important that we're thinking about the future and how we're going to pay for housing. And whether that's advocating at the national level, the state level, or the local level, we need to be able to work collectively to help increase access to rental assistance programs all across the country. At this point in time, individuals who are on the autism spectrum or who have an intellectual and developmental disability are often not even considered in housing assessments at the local level. We have to make sure that we are visible. And so when you ever get the opportunity to advocate in the affordable housing space, I encourage you to, because a lot of people are going to need a home, and market rate rent is just not feasible for the majority of this population.